Hey everybody, this is Mr. W. Our topic today is input and output tables. Our previous lesson was on addition. This is a similar lesson, but the focus today is on subtraction. By the end of this video, you will be able to find the rule for an input-output table and solve for missing numbers. Find the rule and complete the table. So usually there's two things we're doing. We're finding the rule, and then we use the rule to find the missing information on the table. The first step with input-output tables is that we want to check the input number and compare it to the output. And I can see that our first number is 145 and that the output is 130, which means it's getting less. When the numbers are getting less, your choices are going to be either it's going to be subtraction or division. Looking at the numbers, I can tell it's not going to be division because I know that 130, if I were to use an inverse operation, will not multiply by any number and get 145. So this is more than likely in probability going to be a subtraction problem. So next I'm going to write an equation. I'm going to use this first row of information. I'm going to start with the 145. And we said that we think it's going to be subtraction. But I'm not sure what I'm subtracting to get to the 130. So I'm going to use a variable. I'm going to use n. The variable represents an unknown number is equal to 130. The next step is to arrange this so that it can be helpful in getting the value for n. Our job is to solve for n. Well, I can use my fact families information. This time I'm not going to switch it from a subtraction to addition. I am going to subtract, but I'm going to switch 130 with n. So in other words, it's going to be 145 minus 130. That will equal n. I'm going to solve for n, and when I have that, that will give us this number here as well. I'll probably show that more easily if I stack our numbers. 5 minus 0 is 5. 4 take away 3 is 1, and 1 take away 1 would be nothing. So in this case, n is 15, which means that this n is 15. So our rule is more than likely a subtract 15 rule. Now we can use this rule to complete the rest of the table. I'm just going to check here. 100 minus the 15 is the rule that we said. And I do know that that equals 85. I'm not going to belabor too much for subtraction right now. And same thing here. I know that 75 minus 15, if we're using the same rule, would equal 60. So 50 minus 15, I know that 50 minus 10 would be 40, and then the 5 more would be 35. So this is 35. In this case, I have the our answer, our difference, excuse me, but I don't have our other number. So I'm going to write an equation. I'm going to use a blank. Minus 15 is equal to 25. If I use my knowledge of fact families, I can't really write over here. I'll do that down here. 25 plus 15. And if you do that math, you would get 40. and that's the 40 right there. When you do input out tables, I like to think of it as your first step is you have to make a series of decisions, and I just refer to it as a decision flowchart. For example, we have a chart here. We would have to, our first step is that you would check your input and output. So in this case, the first thing I want to do is find my input, and I look at it and I see it's 55. And then I look and see that our output is 45, and I see a similar pattern. It's getting smaller. Remember that our primary goal is to find the rule, but to find the rule, I have to decide if we're going to add or multiply or subtract or divide. And this is what we mean when we're talking about making a decision and just using this idea, which I'm referring to as a flowchart. So our first step is to check the input and output. I can see that it's getting less. The output is not getting more, it's getting less. That's why I highlighted that in yellow. If it's getting less, there's two possibilities. Either you subtract or you divide. In this case, for this lesson, we are focusing on subtraction. Strategy and steps. The key is that we find the rule, and then we can use the rule to find any missing information. To find the rule, we need to make decisions, what we talked about our decision flowchart, to decide if our rule is going to involve addition or subtraction or multiplication or division. We write an equation and solve for the variable. On the previous page, we said our variable was n, and that represented the number we were looking for. Keep in mind your knowledge of fact families or inverse operations, and it's always a good idea to check twice, and we'll get into that. And then you would solve for any missing numbers. For example, here you can see that we have several missing numbers, and that's where we use the rule to solve to find the missing numbers. Find the rule and complete the table. Notice that this input-output chart is running from left to right. First thing we want to do is make a decision, and I'm kind of using that idea of the decision flow chart. I see that 95 is our input. The output is 83, so I'm getting less, and it's either going to be subtraction or division. And I know that when I use inverse operations, 83 times any number would not be 95. So therefore, it could not be division. This would be a subtraction problem here. So now I want to write an equation. So I would write, if I could do this down here, 95 minus, I don't know what I'm subtracting. I know I'm ending up at 83, so I'm going to say minus n, that's the unknown, that's our variable, is equal to 83. Because of fact families, I can switch the n and the 83. So 95 minus 83, that's going to be equal to 12, which means that n is equal to 12, which means our rule would be minus 12. Again, 9 tens take away 8 ones would be 1. And then 5 ones take away 3 ones would be 2. That's where we got our 12. 78, let's just see if this works. So that would work for here. So 78 minus our 12 equals 66. Here we have 59. So 59 minus 12, that's the rule that we are working with, I can subtract this way. I know that 9 in the ones column take away 2 would be the 7. And in the tens, 5 take away 1. So that would be 47. 33 minus our rule of take away 12. I know in the ones, 3 take away 2 would be 1. And in the tens, 3 tens take away 1 10 is 2. So this would be 21. Here I'm missing this number, so I'm going to write this as blank minus 12 equals 7. In this case, I'm going to use my fact families or my inverse operations, and I can say that 7 plus 12 will equal my blank number. 7 plus 12 would be 19, so this would be 19. All right, here's the final exam for today. And go ahead and pause and see if you can look at this and use our strategies to find the rule and then to solve for the missing numbers. Find the rule and complete the table. I first check my input to my output, and I see that 52 is greater than 44, which means we're getting less. It's either going to be a subtraction rule or a division rule. I know in this case it's more than likely going to be subtraction because I cannot use an inverse operation from division. In other words, I can't multiply 44 by any number and get 52. So I know that probability-wise this is going to be subtracting. I'm going to do an equation. 52 minus n. Remember, I do not want to say 52 minus 44 because 44 is our answer, is our difference, okay? So 52 minus our unknown equals 44. I'm running out of room here, so let's see if I can use this space up here. And what I'm going to do is I can, because of fact families, I can switch the n and 44. So I'm going to say 52 minus 44 is equal to n, and I just want to solve for n. I think I will show this step down here. 52 minus 44. More on the floor, so I'm going to regroup. That's going to be 4, and this will make 12. If I use my pin dot strategies for subtracting, I can start with 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I stopped at 12. That's 8 dots. And then 4 minus 4 is nothing. So n would be equal to 8, which means that this n is equal to 8. And our rule is subtract 8. And I'm going to solve. 41 minus 8, which is our rule here. And if I show that step, I'm going to have to regroup. That would become 3, and this would become 11. And if I use my pin dots counting up to 11, 8, 9, 10, 11, you'll notice I made 3 dots. And then this 3 drops down. So 33. 33, let's just see if that works. 33 minus 8, which is our rule. That does equal 25. I'll prove that to you right down here. 33 minus 8. I'm going to have to regroup. That would become 2. This would become 13. And if I use my pin dot strategy, I start at the 8 and count up to 13. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 5 dots. And 2, and you can see our 25. And finally, 19 minus 8. I know that's going to equal 11, right? Let's see if I can show that over here. 19 minus 8, no regrouping for this one. And so that would be 11. In review, our lesson today was on input and output tables, something that looks like this. They can run up and down or left to right. And we said that our key idea is that we have to find what the rule is and then use the rule to fill in any blank information in the input-output table. We use I call it a decision flowchart, where we look at our input, output. We decide if it's getting greater, the output is getting greater or less. Today we were doing subtraction. If it's getting less, it's either going to be subtraction or division. Then we use equations and our knowledge of fact families to solve. That helps us to find the rule. We solve for n, remember? Then that becomes the rule, and then we simply use the rule to solve and do the missing numbers. All right, well, hopefully this is helpful, guys, and we'll see you next time.